guys, welcome back to another Wicked Wednesdays. Today I will be doing a follow-on video from last week's video for you guys, which was the how to sculpt prosthetics video. So this week I will be doing a how to cast and apply them. So I will show you again how to pour the gelatin into the molds and let it set and take it out. Even though I did show you in last week's video, I thought I might as well go over it again. And then I will show you how to attach it to yourself. I'll be doing the usual routine on my hand because that is the easiest, and I'll be showing you how to colour it and make it blend well. So if you'd like to see how that's done, guys, keep watching. So for today you will need some special effects gelatin. This is the same stuff that I used last week. I will just be reheating it and pouring it back into the mould. So if you would like to see the recipe for this, go back to last week's video and I have a recipe for it there. You will also need, of course, a mold of the prosthetic that you will want to be doing. Again, this is in last week's video, how to make this. This is just a simple bullet wound. And to get the prosthetic out of the mold, I find talcum powder or some kind of loose powder to work best. It is just to stop the gelatin from sticking to one another and to just really nicely get it out of the sculpt. Then for the application of it, because it is gelatin, I will be putting Prozaid as the adhesive. And to give gelatin a nice seamless edge, you do want witch hazel. This is just Scotty's Makeup witch hazel, easiest one I could find. This just actually dissolves the gelatin or melts the gelatin, I'm not entirely sure, but if you have a thin enough edge on this actual cast, it will blend it nicely and it will look seamless into the skin. And of course, I just like to apply the Prozaid with some cotton tips just so I do not ruin any of my brushes. But if you do have a shitty little brush that you do not want anymore, you can use that to apply the Prozaid. And lastly, for the colouring in of it, I will have some 99% alcohol, and of course you guys should know by now, if I have the 99% alcohol, that means I will be using my alcohol activated palette by European Body Arts. You of course can just use some foundation for this, but I will be showing you how I like to do it with my alcohol activated palette. Your foundation, or of course if you were putting this over like a full face paint and so you wanted it on a witch or something like that, you can just paint it all green. Like the water-based face paints do go over it reasonably well, so I have had no problem with that. But of course if you are wanting a more lifelike and skin-coloured look, you will want to use some foundation. And of course for the gory side of this, I will be using some fake blood. I will be using this and my Ben Nye scab blood as well. I just like to combine the two so it has a bit of a more realistic look to it. And lastly, on the products list that you will need is some brushes. Some brushes. You will want this to apply the alcohol on it, so if you do not apply the alcohol, you will only need a foundation brush or a paintbrush that you're putting the face paint on with. So let's get started, guys. I will take you to the kitchen with me and I will re-show you how to cast the prosthetic. Okay guys, so now that we're in the kitchen, I will be just heating the gelatin in probably about 10-second intervals until it is fully melted. As per last video that I was talking about it, you do not want it to come to the boil, you just want it to melt. So you do want to keep a fairly good eye on this, just so it does not boil. When pouring the gelatin into the sculpt, you want to make sure that it gets into all the little crevices. So right in the center here, I do want to make sure that it gets all the way into it, otherwise there will be air pockets and that finished product of the prosthetic will not look as convincing or as lifelike as if it had been properly produced. So I like to just start with a tiny little bit of gelatin and just kind of let that all get in. But gelatin does set reasonably fast, so you do want to work reasonably. So once you're happy with it, put it all on. Make sure it gets all the way around and then just scrape it across. And another one if you're not quite happy with it. And don't worry if gelatin does get onto there. Once it sets, you can just peel it off as long as it's not like a paper surface. The gelatin does stick to paper and you will not be able to use that gelatin afterwards. But if you just leave this until it sets, which because this is a pretty cold surface, it will not take that long and you can just peel it straight off. So at the moment, that is how my prosthetic is looking. You almost want to be able to see which way am I going? See the plaster through it. I can pretty much touch all of it except for this little bit over here, which is a little too thick, but there's nothing I can do with that now unless I wanted to recast it, but I'm really not too worried about it. So you just want to set that aside for probably about maybe 5 minutes just to make sure that it is fully set, but because this is such a thin gelatin, it probably won't need that long. Okay, so now that this is completely dry, I will just be taking the talcum powder and putting a little bit on the top and just spreading that out. Now just dust off any excess. Now you just want to start to peel up the edges as well, brushing talcum powder as you go. Now remember to take your time when doing this, because the more you rush it, the more likely you are to end up tearing the gelatin and having to recast the whole thing. So there we go, guys, that is the prosthetic out of the cast. It kind of looked like nothing at the moment, but you will see when I take the edges off it and apply it to my hand what it really looks like. So for this, you can take scissors or you can just gently pull away the edges. I find because it is such a thin edge, I do not need to, but if you are worried that it will tear, by all means grab some scissors. And remember guys, when applying Prose Aid, you do need to apply it to the skin and to the prosthetic as well, wanting it to be dry on both sides before you attach the two. So I'm just going to apply this all over into a pretty decent circle as where I want the prosthetic. Now don't forget to do it to the back of the prosthetic as well, and leave them both to dry before you stick them on. Now the best way with the prosthetic is to not go quite out to the edges and leave a little bit for you to go in with and smooth out later. So now that they are dry on both sides, if I can pick this up, I will try and show you guys. Oh my god, I'm dropping it. A little bit closer. See how it is completely clear now? Just place it straight on to where the other Prose Aid is, and from the middle work your way out, just gently tapping it down as you go. So now with the edges on here, you will just want to go around with some witch's hazel. Sorry, witch hazel, not witch's hazel, I say it every time. I have heard that using it warm works better, but I have never really played around with that. I find it works reasonably well just by itself. So you just want to go around. I'll see if I can zoom in for you guys. There, that's as far as I can zoom in. And you just want to slowly work away the gelatin, just little bits at a time. Just pushing down and gently dragging out. So there you are, guys. That is it completely kind of cleaned up with the witch hazel. Of course you can still slightly see the edges on most of it. Some of the bits are pretty well kind of blended in. I'll see if I can get it any closer for you guys. Is it going to focus? So yeah, you can still kind of see the edges, but once you paint over that, it does help a fair bit. Okay, so now with my alcohol activated palette, I'm just going to go in and colour it. So I'm just going to start by just playing around with some skin tones and trying to get it the same colour. And then I will be adding a red into the middle just to make the wound look a little bit sore. So I already have a pretty rough idea of how to match my skin tone, but it is really just trial and error with alcohol activated palettes, guys. It can take you ages or a little while. It is really just practice makes perfect, which I find you really want to leave each coat in between the alcohol activated palette to dry well before you go applying another layer to it. So when you're happy with the skin colour, I'm just going to go in and add some red. I will be using a combination of this vein blood, I believe it is called, and just this kind of pinky rose. And I realised you can't actually see the vein one that I was talking about. There it is. And I will just be going in and adding quite a light coat of that over there. Okay, so now that I am reasonably happy with the colouring of this, and you can't see overly well because of how bright the lights are, but you can probably get a rough idea. I am just going to go in with my Ben Nye Thick Blood, if I can get that in focus, and my Ben Nye Stage Blood, which is zesty mint flavoured. And I'm just going to be putting the thick blood in a small kind of layer in the bottom because I don't want to build it right up, because then it kind of kills the purpose of having a sunken in wound. So now that I have filled it with some thick blood, I'm just going to put the stage blood in it and pretty much finish it off. So there you go guys, that is my bullet hole. I will zoom out and show you in some better light. That is how to apply and colour a prosthetic. Doesn't matter what prosthetic it is just a general way to apply it. Of course, with adhesives you do need to be careful around the eyes and stuff as well. If you're colouring with an alcohol activated palette, you do not want to use that around the eyes. Of course on your hands and stuff, and remember to always test products before you go applying them fully on, especially latex, because people can have allergic reactions to that. So I always double test them before I use them, just to make sure that I will not have a reaction when I apply a full prosthetic to myself. Well, there you are guys, that is the finished look. I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I did doing it for you. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Don't forget to leave any other suggestions for tutorials you'd like to see me do in the comments section below. I love hearing all of your suggestions, so please keep them coming in, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye!